Right Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of Nepal, Mr. Shakti Bahadur Basnet, Secretary, Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of Nepal, Dr. Bishwa Oli, Vice Chair, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Dr. Thelma Krug, Director General of the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, Dr. David Molden, distinguished delegates, government officials, guests, media friends, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your presence this morning. On behalf of the organizer of this event, IPCC, and the host of the event, the Government of Nepal, Ministry of Forest and Environment, and ICIMOD, Namaste, and a very good morning to all and a warm welcome to the opening ceremony of the Working Group 2 Contribution to the 6th Assessment Report, second lead author meeting. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Pratigya Silwal, and I work as Program Officer for Adaptation and Resilience Building at ICIMOD. And it is indeed a great honor for me to host this event. The IPCC Working Group 2 deals with the impact, adaptation, and vulnerability to climate change. And the second lead author meeting from 14th to 19th July here in Nepal brings together more than 260 authors and IPCC Bureau members from around 60 countries. It is an honor for the Government of Nepal and ICIMOD to host such an important event. Now, with the permission of the chair of the opening ceremony, Honorable Minister, Mr. Shakti Bahadur Basnet, Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of Nepal, may I please request Dr. Bishwa Oli, Secretary, Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of Nepal, to kindly deliver his welcome remarks.
Thank you, Pratigya ji, Chairperson of this opening ceremony, Honorable Minister for Forest and Environment, Chief Guest, Right Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, Honorable Member of the National Planning Commission, Vice Chair of the IPCC, Working Group 2 Co-Chairs, Director General of ICIMOD, Senior Government Officials, distinguished scientists, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. It is a matter of great pleasure and privilege for me to deliver welcome speech at this important meeting. At the outset, on behalf of Ministry of Forest and Environment, allow me to extend my warm welcome to Right Honorable Prime Minister, albeit his busy schedule, for gracing this august gathering of scientists hailing from around the world. I am delighted to welcome you all in Kathmandu and express my sincere gratitude to the IPCC for selecting Nepal for this meeting and to ICIMOD for co-hosting this event. I recall the outreach event that Ministry together with the IPCC and ICIMOD organized in Kathmandu in April 2017. That many of you have traveled long distances to be here in Kathmandu indicates how important the meeting is. I am confident that this meeting will help to contribute in preparation of the IPCC 6th Assessment Report. Climate change is a serious global challenge of the 21st century, which demands urgent, cooperative, and shared responsibility to act. The IPCC Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees is a siren alerting humanity to the urgency of the climate crisis. The report, nevertheless, underscores the scope of science and human capability to meet the Paris Agreement goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. We are optimistic that governments, development partners, the private sector, civil society, local authorities, and other stakeholders are increasingly investing in a smart and viable climate solution that will achieve transformation to a resilient and low-emission global economy. Nepal, as a party to the UNFCCC, supports global efforts to reduce the risk and adverse impacts of climate change. As one of the most vulnerable countries, we have shown our willingness to act at home and in many cases are doing so concertedly to reduce emission, invest in resilience, and engage in carbon trading. Nepal's NDC document highlights that climate action is fundamentally a development issue, a question of how Nepal can create strong, healthy, resilient societies going forward. We are in the process of updating NDC report by 2020 and also working in revising our national climate change policy. The mountain region is threatened by numerous climatic extreme events. In the past few days, for example, torrential rainfall has claimed more than 5 dozen human lives and destroyed properties and infrastructure across Nepal. Few weeks ago, the country noticed heat waves gripping the lowland while people reported temperature also surged in the mountains compared to previous years. The IPCC 6th assessment report will be a great value in providing scientific evidences to this end. I believe there will be a dedicated chapter on mountain in Working Group 2 contribution to the IPCC 6th assessment report. We appreciate the role of the IPCC in providing scientific knowledge about the impacts of climate change on human and natural systems and their vulnerabilities and options to reduce climate-associated risk for sustainable future. I believe the completion of a synthesis report integrating the 3 working group contribution and special reports in 2022 will greatly contribute to informing the 2023 global strategy by the UNFCCC. Once the draft report is available to the governments for review, probably in 2020, we will provide our written comments. I urge all the distinguished scientists to engage in the right of sessions followed by this inaugural session. We have tried our best to ensure that you feel at home and let us know if you need anything else during your stay in Kathmandu. Once again, I would like to extend my warm welcome to Right Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister, and all distinguished participants to this inaugural session. Finally, I wish a grand success of the meeting and wish all the participants a pleasant stay in Kathmandu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oli, for your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to formally inaugurate this event. And for this, may I kindly and cordially invite the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. KP Sharma Oli, to graciously inaugurate the event by watering the plant. It is now my great honor to welcome Dr. Thelma Krug, Vice Chair of IPCC, and I kindly request Dr. Krug to deliver her remarks.
Right Honorable Prime Minister Sharma Oli, Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. Shakti Basnet, Honorable Minister of Forests and Environment from the Government of Nepal, Mr. Bishwa Oli, Secretary of Ministry of Forests and the Environment, Mr. David Molden, Director General from the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, colleagues, guests, and media, good morning. It's an honor to address the opening plenary of the second author meeting of the Working Group 2 contribution to the 6th assessment cycle of the IPCC and extend the IPCC gratitude to the government of Nepal and the authorities of the city of Kathmandu for hosting and for all the generous arrangements made. This 6th cycle of the IPCC is particularly ambitious, with 8 products to be delivered until 2022, including 3 special reports, 1 methodological report, the 3 working groups' contributions, and a synthesis report that is expected to provide the global stocktake process at the Climate Change Convention in 2023 with the most updated scientific information to facilitate the political decisions. So far, the first special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius has been approved in October last year, and the methodological refinement to the IPCC 2006 guidelines accepted in June this year. 2 other special reports will be considered for approval by the IPCC panel in the coming weeks. One in early August, the Climate Change and Land Special Report, and another in September, the Ocean and Cryosphere in a Changing Climate. Maintaining such an ambitious work program, IPCC continues to be the voice of climate science, contributing to evidence-based policymaking around the globe, as it has done for 30 years. The dynamic nature of this cycle brings with it additional challenges to the authors to ensure that elements such as approaches, definitions, calibrated language are internally consistent among chapters and between the working groups. The focus of Working Group 2 on climate change impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability involves a complex, dynamic, and important set of interconnected research topics. The contribution of Working Group 2 is one of the most expected, since it deals with an abundant and diverse new research covering both traditional areas as well as new topics, and more importantly, regional aspects that consider the specificities of each region, such as observed impacts, projected risks, and response measures, particularly adaptation. Addressing climate change impacts on humans and the special conditions on the places where people live, the factors that trap people in poverty, and the diverse relationships between climate change and human security is not trivial. The challenges to achieve these are multifold, and integration among the chapters and the other working groups is fundamental, especially when the focus is on a broad range of possible solutions in the solution space that allows not only to assess impacts and challenges, but also opportunities and synergies. It's about understanding serious problems, but also on how to build a better world. So we welcome the presence of authors from Working Group 1 to help achieve this integration and consistency here. Embracing the vast array of scientific topics requires a big report. 18 chapters and an impressive writing team with over 260 lead authors, with the coordinating lead authors and review editors. It is inspirational to see colleagues find the time and the creativity to make volunteer work, volunteer service to the IPCC an important part of their lives over a long period of writing, revising, responding to comments, rewriting, and revising again. So the working group writing journey depends heavily on wonderful support from hosts like Nepal, support for which all of us are deeply grateful. The special report on 1.5 degrees Celsius already provided high confidence findings regarding climate-related risks for natural and human systems, which are higher for global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius than at present, but lower than at 2 degrees Celsius. These risks depend on the magnitude and rate of warming, geographic location, levels of development and vulnerability, and on the choices and implementation of adaptation and mitigation options. Limiting global warming to 1.5 compared to 2 degrees Celsius is projected to lower the impacts on terrestrial, freshwater, and coastal systems, and to retain more of their services to humans. Increasing warming amplifies the exposure of small islands, low-lying coastal areas, and deltas to the risks associated with sea level rise for many human and ecological systems. The new scientific findings to be provided in the upcoming assessment report, particularly the projected risks at different levels of warming, including potential irreversibility of some impacts and the need for transformational adaptation, are critical to policymakers to make their choices on the basis of the most updated science, as called upon by the Paris Accord and the Climate Convention. So with these words, I look forward to a productive and constructive meeting here in Kathmandu, and thank again the government of Nepal for the generous offer to have us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Krug. To proceed forward, may I please request Dr. David Molden, Director General of ICIMOD, to kindly deliver his remarks.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. KP Sharma Oli, Honorable Minister for Forest and Environment, Mr. Shakti Bahadur Basnet, Secretary, Ministry for Forest and Environment, Dr. Bian Oli, and IPCC Vice Chair, Dr. Thelma Krug, IPCC co-chairs, vice chairs, IPCC authors, working group members, government officials, media representatives, dear colleagues, on behalf of ICIMOD, I would like to warmly welcome you to the second lead author meeting. ICIMOD is very proud and honored to host this meeting with the government of Nepal. Our organization, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, serves mountains and people in 8 countries who share what we call the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And as a research for action organization, climate change is a big concern for ICIMOD, as it is very real in this Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And for many reasons, your visit to Nepal sends a signal that this mountain region, the HKH, and its people are getting the attention deserved with respect to climate change. The mountains and hills are a vast region shared by 8 countries in addition to Nepal: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, and Pakistan, all of the countries served by ICIMOD. While these mountains of the HKH are often seen as remote, mystic places for hiking or self-discovery, people often seem to forget that there are 250 million people living in this region and in the mountains and hills, and 6 times that number in the river basins downstream, dependent on our mountain systems. The Hindu Kush Himalaya mountains are a critical resource base for Asia, and indeed by extension the world, with the rich biodiversity, energy, forests, a huge diversity of cultures, and incredibly important water towers for Asia. Yet people and ecosystems are facing unprecedented challenges and threats from a combination of drivers of change, besides climate change, globalization, and population dynamics. Now, thinking about IPCC, we have been totally impressed with the work you do, the process you take, but to be honest, in the past we were slightly disappointed to the attention given to this region. So the 4th assessment report flagged this region as data gap, right? We really don't know much about it. The 5th assessment report, perhaps the treatment of the Hindu Kush Himalaya, I think, was a little bit light. But the good news is that has all changed, right? And many scientists have focused their efforts on the Himalayas now, and we have tremendously better insights than, say, we did 10 years ago. We are pleased that the special report on Oceans and Cryosphere also deals with mountain issues, and that ICIMOD was provided to provide significant inputs into drafting the SROC. ICIMOD itself, our organization, has produced the Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment involving 350 scientists, policymakers, and practitioners using an IPCC-like process to address climate change and sustainable development. And actually, I sincerely hope you're able to use that report in this assessment as well. What the Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment tells us that there is a climate crisis here in the mountains and hills, and we're very vulnerable to this crisis. Glaciers, snowfields receive well-deserved attention in the media and also in scientific reports, and I'm sure also in the IPCC reports. Shrinking glaciers, permafrost thaw, receding snow taken together with temperature changes and changes in rainfall patterns means that there will be significant changes in water systems. So important for farming, energy, cities, and biodiversity. 2 billion people live in 10 river basins that get their water from these mountains. And the question I hear all the time is, what is the impact of climate change on all of those people dependent on the mountains? However, excuse me, the climate change picture is much more than glaciers in the region. The region is already quite vulnerable. There are high levels of poverty, of food insecurity in the region. And at the same time, there's tremendous socio and ecological change. For example, high levels of outmigration from mountain areas. Living many years in Nepal, and happy to do so, I've immensely enjoyed the rhythms of the seasons and the festivals that go along with us, very much in tune with climatic pattern. There's a special Nepali date, the 15th of Asad, about June 30th, right? And that date is special because it's the rice planting, right? So people get out in the muddy fields, should be wet, right? And get together and throw mud at each other, eat dahi chura, the yogurt and the beaten rice. And basically, it's a very happy time in Nepal. But this year, the rains did not arrive on time. And in fact, arrived about 2 weeks later, basically now. Right? When you come, you came with the rains. You should have come 2 weeks earlier, I guess, and enjoyed the rice planting. But we've had a lot of rain, and in fact, probably too much rain. And in fact, we were actually quite concerned whether you would make it to the event or not. Kathmandu experienced flooding at the same time, even this morning. The rivers are, wow, they're full this morning. All of this highlights the unpredictability, the variability, and extremes of the monsoon. It seems that with climate change, this variability and unpredictability will even further intensify, making life more difficult for mountain farming. And food and nutritional security is already a big issue here. So we have about 30% of the population suffering, and this is of the 8 countries, suffering from food insecurity, and about 50% facing some kind of malnutrition in the region, affecting women and children the most. Floods, right, are already a reality. They've always been. Floods have always been with us. However, every monsoon, the situation seems to get more dire. And it actually, when you watch the news here, living here, it can be really intense, right? When is the next flood coming? I'm sure for our government colleagues, it's very intense, wondering about how to respond to various flood disasters. And in fact, they're so common you don't hear about them in the international news. But every year somewhere in the 8 countries of HKH, there's a huge flood in the time that I've been here. Of course, the causes of the disasters is not just climate change. It's other factors like people living in floodplains, or the way infrastructure is built, or even plastic clogging up the drainage. But there's a very clear signal on the need to adapt, to build resilience, to address the flood risk that we're seeing increasing in the future. Now, warming also brings risks in mountain areas, with the risks of new pests and new pathogens and new disease vectors moving to new altitude, right, as the weather warms up. So in this special mountain climate, very quickly you see different diseases moving up in elevation. Even niche products. Nepal is famous for apples, and what we see are now more people, or people at higher elevation can grow apples. Great for them, not so good if you already had an orchard of apples and can't grow them anymore at that place. The recently released IPBS report warned of an unprecedented loss in biodiversity, and this HKH region has 4 biodiversity hotspots. Scientists predict that almost a quarter of the 15,000 endemic species in the HKH could be wiped out by 2100. It's a reminder for all of us to think about the importance of biodiversity as a system that underpins life, food, and health in our area. Air pollution in the Hindu Kush Himalaya is also on the rise. Luckily these days it's pretty good now, but air pollution affects not just the health of people and ecosystem, but also climate and the glaciers. And in fact, the air pollution causes glaciers to melt even faster. It also impacts agriculture and livelihoods as well. Air pollutants originating within and near the mountains amplify the effects of greenhouse gases and accelerates the melting of glaciers through deposition of black carbon and dust. However, with concerted efforts to deal with air pollution in this region, we can get some fast results that will also be a very positive contribution to addressing climate change. So the warnings from IPCC's special report on 1.5 degrees, the Hindu Kush Himalayan Assessment Report, the IPBS are very clear and point to the need for urgent action. We have enough information to do a lot already. We need a collective response equivalent to the Himalayan scale of the challenges before us. And adaptation and resilience building measures are particularly relevant for this mountain region. They will require more than just incremental approaches. It will require very tailored approaches with a long-term vision and well integrated into government plans and programs. And I'm sure this will require more funding than presently available. Of course, we also need good science to develop those responses, and sciences that address the complex interaction of climate, society, ecology, and change. It will take a diversity of views, young people, women and men, people from all different parts of the world to put together this complex and address this complex situation. And I'm sure, Thelma, that's what will happen over the next few days. It's not just stopping at the science. It's so important to address the policy, especially in this region, to make change. And the HKH assessment calls for more cooperation at all levels, from communities to nations, and cooperation between countries. And I'm happy to say that the government of Nepal is already taking a lead to bring mountain countries together. I just returned from the UN High-Level Political Forum on SDGs and worked very closely with the government of Nepal at that event to bring the message of mountain countries together. And I hope we can do more of that in the future. At ICIMOD, we're very happy that there is a dedicated cross-chapter on mountains in AR6. We are very pleased to be contributing to that. And it's also extremely heartening to see the highest level of involvement and commitment from the government of Nepal. Thank you all very, very much for that from the government of Nepal in this important battle that is ahead of us. Finally, I wish you inspiration, I wish you enlightenment in the special mountainous surrounding of Nepal, to put the best of your wisdom to work as you take this very important step in drafting the 6th assessment report, which is critically important for mountains and people and the world as well. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Molden. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great privilege to now cordially invite and welcome the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Honorable Minister, IPCC Vice Chair Dr. Thelma Krug, IPCC Working Group Second Co-Chairs, Director General of ICIMOD, distinguished scientists, media friends, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very good morning and very, very warm welcome to Nepal to all foreign delegates. Indeed, it is my great pleasure to be here with you, and I extend a warm welcome to all of you. I express my sincere gratitude to the IPCC Secretariat and IPCC Working Group Second for organizing this important event for the first time in Nepal. Similarly, my sincere thanks goes to the Ministry of Forest and Environment and ICIMOD for organizing and hosting the event and inviting me as the chief guest to address this august gathering of IPCC authors. Ladies and gentlemen, our country Nepal is a landlocked and mountainous country with diverse ethnicities and cultures, rich biological diversity, and incredibly beautiful landscape. People from all over the world come to enjoy this natural and cultural beauty, not only as tourists but also as researchers. I presume that this may have influenced the IPCC's decision to organize this important event here in Kathmandu. On a more serious note, Nepal is also extremely vulnerable to the adverse effect of climate change. While our contribution to global greenhouse gas emission is insignificant, rising temperatures, retreating glaciers, and errating rainfall are having a serious and negative impact on our citizens, damaging farms, homes, and infrastructure, and causing huge losses to the economy. We have no choice but to be prepared to address these impacts and make our people more resilient to climate change. We promulgated our new constitution in 2015. Article 30 gives citizens the fundamental right to a clean environment. Tragically, there was a massive earthquake in the same year. Thousands of people lost their lives and properties, with millions was damaged every year. Government invests huge amount of resources for disaster management. Particularly to rescue and rehabilitate people from landslides and floods in the summer and monsoon months. Recent trends show that the weather is becoming more unpredictable and there are new risks as we witnessed delayed monsoon this year, as my dear friend just mentioned before. A tornado struck Bara and Parsa districts in the south for the first time in our recorded history, killing 23 and destroying, killing 32 and destroying property worth millions. While there is no sector that is unaffected by climate change, the agriculture sector is the most affected, aggravating flood and nutritional insecurity. Similarly, forest and biodiversity, energy and water resources, tourism, urban and rural settlements, industry and infrastructure sector are all negatively impacted by climate change. Together, they have a huge direct and negative impact on the national economy. The government has a vision of prosperous Nepal, happy Nepali, which we believe can be achieved through green economy pathways and low carbon strategy while carrying out industrial, infrastructure, and urban and rural development. Ladies and gentlemen, in our pursuit of rapid industrial, infrastructure, and economic growth, we humans are ignoring all other life forms. As a result of this rapid economic and industrial development, the adverse effects of climate change are constantly increasing. To some extent also, working as a barrier to peace building and security, and causing imbalances in natural and human systems. I am fully aware of the IPCC's special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, released last year, and its recommendations concerning 1.5 and 2 degree Celsius pathways. I am pleased to let you know that the government is going to approve a new climate change policy 2019 very soon, considering the IPCC's recommendations. Fellow scientists, science is not negotiative. I reiterate that Nepal wholeheartedly welcomes the IPCC's 1.5 degree Celsius report, although the findings are very alarming. Following our stand in COP24 made by our Right Honorable President and the commitments made by our delegates to the 50th session to the subsidiary body of scientific and technological advice last month in Bonn, Germany, we are fully committed to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement. I am also pleased to hear that IPCC is publishing two other important reports this year on land and climate change and the ocean and cryosphere in the changing climate. It is heartening to learn that there is a dedicated chapter on high mountains in a special report on oceans and cryosphere on climate change, and that ICIMOD and partners have made good contribution to this chapter and the overall report. I do believe that these reports will provide policymakers with the solid ground and the science to formulate climate change policies. As you know, the UNFCCC is planning a global stockable or climate change efforts in 2023, and this sixth assessment report will be published in 2022, a year before the global stock day. This will help parties develop a common time frame and reporting and implementing the Paris Rulebook, which was finalized at COP24. I urge all scientists who are assessing climate information, trends in climate, observed impacts, women, fingerprints, and other scientific facts and figures to recommend alternative climate resilience development pathways, considering the rights of future generations to live in peace and harmony and the sustainability of natural and human systems. Climate change being a global agenda, this is also the right time to invite regional efforts for which your recommendations are crucial. A recent report by the ICIMOD presents an alarming set of messages about the impact of climate change in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, almost affecting a quarter of humanity. I firmly believe that mountains need special attention in the region and global climate agenda. As a mountainous country, the government of Nepal will take the lead to force an alliance of mountain countries of the world and raise concerns in the forthcoming UN Climate Summit and COP25. I am pleased to inform this August gathering that the government of Nepal has announced a Sagarmatha Dialogue, an international platform to bring together world leaders through leaders and relevant stakeholders for a discourse and cooperation on pressing issues of humankind. The first Sagarmatha Dialogue will be held in 2020 in Kathmandu on the climate change theme, and I humbly invite scientists to join hands with Nepal and contribute. Perhaps this Sagarmatha Dialogue will be organized in March. We have tentatively thinking to organize the program on March, but formally it is not decided yet. And all of you, all the friends are invited, all the scientists are invited and contribute in that Sagarmatha Dialogue, which is particularly organized for the issue of climate change. I believe that your assessment will help us in developing our common stand and explore collective efforts to combat the climate crisis. Distinguished scientists, countries have different geoclimatic situations and varying levels of climate change, mitigation, and adaptation capacities. Climate change has unequal impacts in an unequal world. We know that some of the countries are in a better position in terms of preparedness while others need external support. It is also a fact that least developed countries like Nepal are the most vulnerable. Therefore, I urge scientists to keep these countries in mind while assessing the facts and writing the report and making appropriate recommendations. Particularly the small island countries are in danger because of the climate change and global warming. The sea level is increasing. And mountainous countries are related to this question. And particularly I would like to draw your attention that 2/3 of the Himalayan range lies in Nepal. 2/3 of the Himalayan range. And the waters in the Ganges, in the wet season, in the rainy season, 40% we contribute because the catchment area of India is larger and it contribute 60% in the rainy season. But in dry season, we contribute 72% of the water of Ganges river. It clearly indicates that the importance of the Himalayas, the ice, our mountains are shouldering. And recharge system, we are contributing through our mountains. And naturally, this is contribution of Nepal, naturally, not by made by anybody, but naturally it is our contribution. And second contribution, I want to just draw your attention. This mountain region is between the line of Cancer and line of Capricorn, between about. And this is the hot area. And the hot air comes from the deserts and hot areas. And when it goes to near to the mountains, it becomes cool. So to cool the mountains, the importance, to cool the air, hot air, and to make the temperature down, contribution of the mountains and Himalayas is very, very important. And as I mentioned, recharge system. This is not only cold peaks, the Himalayas, but the Himalayas are the stores of water, resources of water. And the water doesn't rain, just doesn't rain on the top of the mountains and goes flow, but it rains as the ice, it falls as the ice, snow, and the mountain shoulder many meters, thick layer of ice, and gradually melts and drops and goes to the rocks, and they gradually release, and the earth is recharged with water. This is a process. So I would like to draw attention of the scientists that we have to make more researches on this question, the importance of the mountains. So if we want to control the flood in Tarai or in India or in Bangladesh, or want to control the rising of the sea level, we have to give attention on the mountains. Anyway, I just tried to draw your attention about the importance of the mountains. Science is supposed to be natural, neutral. I urge you to temper that neutrality with a sense of climate justice and fairness. Finally, climate finance is a prerequisite to address the unpredictable impacts of climate change. Direct and easy access to resources and technologies will be crucial for least developed countries to prepare for and address climate change challenges. A twofold strategy of South-South cooperation and North-South cooperation needs to be adopted in favor of the most vulnerable countries. In closing, I wish you all a very pleasant stay in Nepal and wish you every success in preparations of the 6th assessment report of the Ipcc. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Prime Minister. We are honored and we express our gratitude for your presence here today. Now, please allow me to welcome Honorable Minister, Mr. Shakti Bahadur Basnet, Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of Nepal, to deliver the closing remarks of this ceremony.
Right Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, IPCC Vice Chair, Co-Chairs, and Bureau members, Dr. Nath, Secretary of Forest and Environment Ministry, Member of National Planning Commission, Honorable Krishna Prasad Oli, scientists and authors, distinguished guests, Director General of ICIMOD, media personnel, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me an immense pleasure in taking this opportunity to be here in this inaugural session of meeting of ICC Working Group 2nd. First of all, allow me to express my deep gratitude to the Right Honorable Prime Minister for accepting to be the chief guest of this session. Climate change is a global agenda. Average global temperature has increased by nearly 1 degree Celsius above the pre-industrial level, resulting in an increase in glacial retreat, ice melting, sea level rise, heat extremes, ocean heats, and weather extremes. The Himalayan countries like Nepal have already experienced an increase of 0.8 degrees Celsius in average temperature during the last 50 years. And we have observed its negative impacts on people's livelihoods, economies, and ecological systems. We have realized that there is no choice but need to take urgent and collaborative actions in order to tackle the climate crisis. In this regard, we recently discussed the ways forward in Abu Dhabi climate meeting held earlier this month for the preparation of UN Climate Actions Summit to be held in September this year. I hope the summit will give a clear picture of actions ahead. I am fully hopeful that this working group, second, will assess climate change impacts, adaptation and vulnerability to climate change based on available sciences and advance their contribution to IPCC 6th assessment report. I would like to request all scientists to consider and incorporate the climate-related mountain-specific issues in the upcoming assessment report. Countries in mountainous regions, particularly the LDCs, are highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change due to their rugged topography, exacerbated by increasing population, poverty, environmental degradation, and economic dependency on climate-sensitive activities such as agriculture. The glacial lake outburst flood, flash floods triggered by the erratic rainfall, and increased scarcity of water have been increasingly observed in this part of the world in the last few decades. And they have had large adverse impacts on the lives and livelihoods. I hope that the impact of climate change on the complex mountain ecosystems and the struggle of mountain people to cope with the changing climate will be reflected in the IPCC 6th assessment report. I appreciate the IPCC Secretariat, scientists and authors for preparing regular assessment reports and the intermittent special reports on climate change. These reports are really helpful in guiding our global climate actions to mitigate climate change impacts and achieving the goals of Paris Agreement. I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to IPCC for providing the Government of Nepal with the opportunity to host this meeting. I also extend my thanks to ICIMOD for its enormous cooperation to organize this event here in Nepal. I strongly believe that the outcome of this meeting will successfully contribute to the 6th assessment report and thereby benefit the global society for better planning and managing the climate change adaptation and mitigation actions to cope with the adverse impacts of climate change. I would like to thank the entire distinguished guests for giving their precious time in attending this inaugural session. My special thanks go to the staff of the IPCC, ICIMOD, and the Ministry of Forest and Environment for their hard work for making this event a success. Many thanks to media friends for their interest and presence on climate change issues. Finally, I wish a grand success of this meeting and enjoyable stay of distinguished authors in Kathmandu. I adjourn this inaugural session. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the end of the opening ceremony, and we thank you all for joining the ceremony.